Hello, hello. Hopefully you can see me and hear me. All right. Let me know if you can see me, hear me, and all that. Those two things. Um, got a few things to kind of talk over and get through this morning or this evening, wherever you are in the world. As you can see right over here, a few things we're going to talk about. So let's give it a few minutes and let you guys know you can hear me loud and clear. That's good. Thank you for that. So we're going to going to talk a bit about Legacy of You, the Kickstarter date, and I've got some little things to kind of show and all that. And then some updates from kind of from me and some from friends that about a not new but a business kind of venture that I'm now a part of. Just so you guys know what I'm up to, I guess. And then Sam's going to come on towards the end. We're going to show the box art and some components from the first light expansion, and then also show you the scholars stuff. So it's gonna be pretty cool. Looks like there's a few people on, some familiar names. Thank you for joining, and if you're rewatching this later, thank you for joining. All right, so first thing to kind of share is Legacy of You. I'm just gonna flip to this. I'm gonna be fancy and show some slides. So boom, can't see me anymore, but you should be able to hear me still. So we kind of shared this picture on Board Game Geek a few weeks ago anyway, so you've probably seen it. Legacy U is a solo-only campaign game. It's got story written by my good friend Ben Hewitson, art by my brother Sam Phillips, and designed by me. So it's a kind of it's a solo game, but it feels a bit like a co-op because you either win or lose. There's not really victory points and that kind of stuff. So it's quite a tense game. It's good fun actually watching someone else play. It's quite an emotional experience as the ups and downs of the game kind of pushing and pulling as you're adapting to the gameplay. So a lot of fun. It's a game where you play until you either win or lose 7 times. So it's usually going to be about 10 to 12 games that you'll play in a campaign. But yeah, that is coming to Kickstarter on, get it right, September the 6th. So not too far away actually, like 3 or 4 weeks. And it's going to be launching on the 6th in New Zealand evening, which is usually the 6th. Most parts of the world will be the 6th at some point. It's hard to say the word 6th clearly, but number 6. Yeah, and we're going to have a few things on there. There's going to be add-ons available for Hadrian's Wall and Raiders of Scythia. We're also going to make the metal coins for Scythia available as an add-on, just because I know a lot of people have got it through Renegade, through retail, or different language versions that might not have the coins. So they're going to be available separately. We're also going to have the older promos for Scythia, the Huntress and Stableman, and also the actor promo, I think it's called, for Hadrian's Wall, which Man vs. Meeple launched through their Kickstarter earlier this year. Both those two will be available as add-ons. And there's also going to be a new promo pack, one sort of promo set for each of those 3 games in the Ancient Anthology. That's going to be free for every copy of Legacy of You, but also we'll make it available as an add-on if you want more copies, because you might just want, you might not be getting the base game or whatever it is. But those will be 4 new heroes for Raiders of Scythia. There's, I think it's 12 from the top of my head, maybe 16. 12 cards for Hadrian's Wall, which are like the fate cards that you reveal at the end of each round. They basically have either double damage, so they hit 2 cohorts, or they do no damage. So a bit more of a kind of an emotional, like what's going to happen during the end of the round type thing for Hadrian's Wall. And the last one, it also adds, it's the active promo. Forget what I'm saying. We're also going to add a little promo for Hadrian's Wall, for Legacy of You, which is kind of like just 2 cards, which you can use in the game to make it more difficult. If you're finding that you're just too good at the game, because some of you are probably pretty good gamers, you can add them in to make the game more difficult. But this is the box, the sample that arrived last week. Pretty amazed with this box cover, if I'm being completely honest. It's one of my favorites of all our games so far. Just love the composition of the dragon, the wave becoming the dragon, and the great U fighting it off there. So Sam has knocked this one out of the park. I'll show you a little bit of what's inside. While you're here, I may as well. So we have a rule book, of course. You'd need that. this is the storybook, which we've gone with that kind of thinner format. It's the same dimensions as the Tome Saga rulebook, if you've got that, and just a little flash without giving away too many secrets. That's what it looks like on the inside. So it's really good because you can actually hold it quite easily and just sort of thumb through, finding the right number that you're looking for, and then reading the relevant story. But yeah, really cool. Big dragon on the front, and then a little thick on the back. This is the board. So I'm just ignoring the comments, but Sam's in there, I think. He's replying stuff. This is the board, if I can show it on screen without smashing my microphone. So in the game, you are trying to build these canals. You can see the canals kind of in the artwork that's on the board here, but these start with cards covering them that you have to like reveal as you play the game. So you're trying to build all of the canals while also defend against all these barbarians that are come flooding in from the side of the board to attack your village. And down the bottom we have basically your village that you're trying to build up and defend. There's a little bit of engine building stuff you can do with the cards and the buildings that you can construct. But yeah, really fun. Love that art. Sam again is just like getting better and better every game he's doing, so amazing stuff. All right, I'm just going to show you the inside. Hopefully it doesn't tip out on me, just so you can see kind of what's on the inside. So we've done a little bit more deluxe than we've usually done in the past for our games. You can see all these components here and this side. These are easy to scoop out kind of trays, so you can just grab stuff out quite quickly and easily. And at the bottom you'll see that there are, like this side, descriptions of where to put cards. So history is where you put cards that you can have done within the campaign. Up the top here, I'm trying to make it fall out, this is the story deck. So all these cards here are the ones you don't look at until you are told to, and you start with all these cards down here. So I'm not going to try and show too much about that because it's going to probably fall everywhere and go nasty, but that is Legacy of You. So coming out in September 6th. Lots of things on the Kickstarter, and we're going to get that built mostly this week on Kickstarter. So we'll hopefully have a link that you can sort of bookmark, maybe by the end of the week or early next week. But yeah, so next thing I wanted to kind of share with you guys is a new, for me at least, a new business venture that I'm going on. How do I start this one out? I've known these two people that I'm going to introduce to you soon for quite a few years now. I think close to 6 or 7 years. I met them during another project, and they went off and did their own publishing company. And long story short, we've kind of spitballed a bit about potentially doing something new together, and maybe that's more to do with IP or things beyond board games, not just board games, but that kind of stuff. They're both very creative people. And then we kind of went back and forth about the things we could do, and always came back to kind of what would this company actually be? How would it generate income, which is, important for a business, of course. And that's kind of got shelved a little bit. And then they basically just said to me, would you like to come on board with our current company? Come on board as a director, as a shareholder, to which I was just like, yeah, that'd be amazing. This is Arkus Games. If you didn't already know who Arkus Games are, they are the people who released Shelfie Stacker last year, or earlier this year. I'm going to question myself now, which is a game that I designed, and they now have a new game to announce very soon, or they kind of have announced already. But when I say they, it's basically us now. So I'm coming on board, or already have come on board as a co-director of Arkus Games. And a shareholder there, so pretty exciting stuff. They are doing stuff that I can't do on my own. Very creative, very like art driven and world building driven, which I love. I'm just rambling now, aren't I? Something else I should say. The other thing I wanted to say is that this is not taken away at all from Garphill Games. So Garphill Games is still like my main focus, the thing that I spend pretty much most of my week working on. But for Arkus, I'm there as like to help out and share my knowledge and help grow the company into what we all want it to see it grow to. So I'm going to bring them on now, and then we can share a bit of our story. So hopefully the guys will unmute themselves and we'll see if we can see them. Hello, Paul and Nicola. Can we hear you?
Hi there.
We can hear you. Great. So if you're unsure,
Miracle.
Paul is on the left, Nicola's in the middle.
Oh,
If that wasn't clear. So we actually met. Well, I met Paul first. I think we were saying it was 2016. I think it was maybe late 2016. Because I
Yep.
had been chatting with some, I guess you say, mutual friend, Ike, who was working at Weta Workshop at the time, um, and then I got this. I think I got actually an email from you, Paul. I think it was saying, "I've got this IP. I hear you make games. I've got an IP. I'd love you to work on a game. Can we meet?" Um, and then yeah, we went up with Ike and then chatted about some stuff, and then all that kind of snowballed into me basically coming on doing a bit of work at Weta Workshop, which is where I met Nicola. So, um, Paul, why don't you go first? Just tell us a little bit about who you are and your experience and stuff, I guess.
Sure. I'll keep it brief too, obviously.
I don't believe you.
But yeah, thanks for inviting us along.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess in terms of backgrounds, I think I started playing games. I was a teenager in the '80s and grew up on Dungeons and Dragons. And I guess when I look back on my life, it's been pretty much games and film have been the two, and playing in imaginary worlds. So I've had a great time over the last sort of 20 years working in those kind of industries, and sort of briefly disappearing overseas to do my Indiana Jones thing for a little while,
As we all do.
doing a little bit of work on some archaeological sites, and just sort of having some fun abroad. But when I got back to New Zealand, Lord of the Rings was in full swing. My flatmate was working on it, and so I decided that I'd have a crack at art school again because I'd failed the two previous times, and finally got in. And fast forward sort of 19 years later, I managed to survive my interview with Richard at Weta Workshop. Until very recently, I've been working at Weta full time, on films like The Hobbit and Narnia and Avatar and those kind of things. But obviously, while I was at Weta, we one at the then head of consumer products came up to myself, Larry, and Christian, who are all senior concept artists at Weta, and said, "Hey, we've got this opportunity. These guys want to make a board game. They just like District 9 a lot. Could you do something maybe in that vein?" And so we got really excited by that because it's not often that you get a chance to kind of create a whole world yourself. Usually we're just little players in a big pool. And so that's where things kicked off, and obviously led to us working on GKR. We hired Nicola, and obviously through Ike, we met you as well, and so that was kind of my time at Weta. And then just sort of literally about sort of 6 weeks ago, I took the plunge and decided to go full time working on Arkus. So, but yeah, and in fact, maybe Nicola, you might be better to talk to that part of it.
Go on.
Go on, go on.
Wait, what? What part?
All the
I know you
parts.
could
Yeah.
introduce yourself. Your turn.
Oh, hi, I'm Nicola. I'm one of, as Paul and Shem said, the co-founders of Arkus. I've primarily been in production roles in the entertainment industry for the last 12 years. I've launched worlds, collectibles, and games for studios such as Pickpock and Weta Workshop, where, as everyone said, Giant Killer Robots was the main project. I've worked on properties such as Nickelodeon's Penguins of Madagascar, Adult Swim's Adventure Express. Yeah, so I've had a lot of fun, and then was super excited to start Arcus Studios with Paul after a coffee and a great game design from Shem. And here we are now doing our second game.
Amazing. We've got some photos actually that Paul flicked through. I'm gonna flick that slide now, and we'll keep yabbering.
I left the most embarrassing one of you out. So just
Of me or of
yeah.
Nicola.
Yeah.
Um,
No, of
so,
you.
so here's a few shots. So up on the left there, you can see Ike. He was really involved early on in GKR with the marketing side of things, and preparing for Kickstarter. So I think he's trying to build one of the robots for something.
I think that was at Gen Con actually. It broke.
Oh,
He was
what's
trying
Gen
to fix
Con?
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
master of all
Yeah.
trades, stuntman and everything.
Yeah.
And then you can
Literally
see
stuff.
very younger versions of me and Paul playing an early version of GKR in the middle. um,
And
and
then
yeah,
yeah,
off to
and
the
then
top
the
right. What's that?
yeah. That's yeah. So that was that's probably one of our first playtests of Atlantis, which was it's an IP I've been working on for I don't know years as just a hobby project. And that's the game that Ike said you should really meet Shem. He could be a great person to team up with for your Atlantis IP. So that was this is possibly one of the longest development board games in the history of board games, I suspect.
Yeah,
easily. But yeah, so that's just a little picture of us playing a very early prototype with my friend Carl. And then below that, obviously, we've got, this was, I think, an image from the couple of images from our launch date from Kickstarter on GKR. So that's Nicola with one of the other co-founders, Larry, and Joel Savage, and Liana, who was our amazing copywriter, but very shy.
The elephant face.
Hence the pink elephant. And then, yes, that was the next one's me and Larry, 3 a.m, just before we were launching Kickstarter. So desperately trying to finish the last few perfectionist touches to the Kickstarter page. By that stage, we were pretty much seeing double. I think we hadn't slept in quite some time. And then finally, I guess, and this speaks to what we're doing now as a group, after that time, that fun time we had at Weta together and sort of meeting everyone, we stayed in touch. We've kept staying in touch, and so I guess the cool thing about that is we've all decided to sort of keep working together and make games together, which is a pretty amazing opportunity.
Yeah, pretty cool. I'll flip back to us though. There you go. Now you can see our wonderful faces again. So Arkus have a new game coming out very soon to Kickstarter.
Yeah,
look at that. There it is. First sample from the factory in China. And Nicola, do you want to share a little bit about the game, or who's going to share a little bit about the story maybe of the game?
I'll jump. Oh, well, I can jump into like the basics of what the game is. So it's a strategic patch and worker placement game for 1 to 4 players. You'll play one of these cookie confectioners, and you'll be competing to create the most prosperous candy meadow in order to become the season's sweetest supplier.
Easy. So it's kind of a tile placement and worker placement kind of meshed together. Designed by, I'll flip that slide, boom. Designed by Lucas Adam, or Lucas Grace, his real name. No. And he's the designer of Galilean Moons, which he did everything for, like a couple of years ago, I think it was. Did the art and the design, development, everything. Good friend of ours that we've known for a long time. And I was going to get flicking between slides. He's a very talented guy at creating like very clean little puzzly systems for games. Anytime that I've played any of his kind of prototypes, I'm just like, this is just so simple and clever. I wish I'd designed it myself. He's just always knocking out more games. So Dreadful Meadows.
He's always got something new to playtest. Hey,
he does.
He's always coming up with stuff. Yeah.
So Dreadful Meadows is like, it's one of his best games that I've ever played. Easily still as well. So. If not the best, I think. So we've got a picture of us, I think, playing, and there's a bit more of a mock-up of the game as well. This is us actually like, a week or 2 ago, playing the actual print copy, or the pre-production copy. So you kind of see it there on the table. And yeah, this is the image I think that Paul's mocked up for Kickstarter and for promotion and stuff. So
yes. Yeah, it's been quite a wild ride. I think we've been on it for just nearly coming up a year and a half now. I think we played the first prototype that Lucas had at Counterculture. I think Shem introduced us, and we sat down and played it. And it was a bizarre sort of, I think it was just meant to be. After we finished Shelfie Stacker, we were obviously starting to look around for our next game, and me and Nicola jokingly said, I think my wife's dream would be to work on a Halloween game because she's such a huge Halloween fan. That's clear. And she obviously illustrated Shelfie Stacker. And just literally probably 2 weeks later, you came to us and said, there's this game. And then when we turned up and Lucas brought it out and his early prototype had some Halloween imagery on it, we just sort of couldn't believe our luck. And so since then, it's just been a huge amount of fun and hard work to sort of bring it to this point where we're literally about to release it. So yeah, it's really exciting.
So rewarding to see these amazing components. Here's the candy. Hopefully it's not too blurry, but we'll be posting some pictures soon of all these little candy pieces.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, that is a bit blurry. Sorry. Better pictures going
We're just
soon.
excited. We just want to share.
Yeah, and here
The
the
bat board.
bat-shaped board, which I'll have to do this way so you can fit in. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so awesome artwork.
Yeah.
And the world buildings, all amazing stuff. We don't have an actual specific Kickstarter date yet, but it's October, is that right? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're shooting for October. With that, we'll have the deluxe version all confirmed and ready to launch specifically for Kickstarter, and the first expansion as well.
With secret things. More
With
secret
secret things. Yes, I'm not telling you anymore.
So I'll put, once the video's finished streaming, I'll put the link to the Kickstarter landing page in this video, so you can go there and you can follow it so you get notified. And we'll be sharing more and more stuff about that as we get closer to the date. But if you like games like Cascadia, King Domino, all that, those kind of like puzzly but really crunchy little games, Garphill Meadows is definitely that kind of game. Anything else you guys want to share before I boot you off?
No, I think
We're just really excited to work with you.
Yeah, it's
So,
gonna be
yeah,
good. We've got
awesome
lots of
that
cool
it's
stuff
not.
coming, Lots of cool stuff coming in the
Yeah,
next
and
lot.
now it's out
Yeah.
there.
So
Yeah, we can
Very
finally
good.
share the exciting news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both for coming on, and
All right.
I'll be chatting to you later.
Okay, take care.
See ya.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
All right, they're gone. No. Yeah, so pretty awesome stuff. It's going to be very different. There's a lot of games I have designed previously and even now, actually. And games that I like to play that wouldn't fit the Garphill brand. Which is why you've got games like Shelfie Stacker and Noctiluca out there in the world now already. So yeah, Arkus is like a new, for me at least, it's a new opportunity to kind of explore different types of games that I otherwise wouldn't publish or wouldn't develop. So my role at Arkus will mostly be around development, and also helping a lot with logistics and kind of sharing the load between the two companies where we can. Like maybe it's sharing a container on the ocean or something, sending stock, that kind of stuff. So we use a lot of the same manufacturers and the same shipping companies, so we can share resources and not, work smarter, not harder. Yeah, so that's cool stuff. All right, we're coming up to 25 minutes. Who wants to talk to Sam McDonald? He's a pretty cool guy. So I'm going to bring him on in and see if his lovely face shows up. Sam, there he is. There he is.
Hold up.
He's on.
How are we doing?
Good. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, very exciting news about Arkus.
Yeah.
I know that Dreadful Meadows is a great game, and I'm excited to see what other projects you've got coming up.
I know you've played one that we probably can't talk about yet, but it's a game by another Kiwi designer that I have not played yet, but you've said it's really good, so I'm looking forward to playing that at some point. I know that was all very broad and no one knows what we're talking about. I didn't even know what I'm talking about, but yeah. We're going to share a few things for Garphill, aren't we? Which is what some people are holding out for. The first thing we want to kind of share is the expansion for First Light, which Sam's designed. We were going to kickstart it last year, I believe it was,
Yeah, and then you came back to me and said, "Look, you've got 4 player powers in there. How can we have 12?" And you've added about 10 contract cards. Can we have 26? And I was like, "Okay, let's do that." So we've really pushed the boat out here with the design. This game opens up in a huge way with the expansion. It really does add a lot. So I'll be talking about that soon, everything that it adds. Unless you want me to talk about that now.
No, I'm going to flip to a slide, show the box cover, and then also a few components. So you can probably talk a bit about the, what these components are and stuff. So, yeah, I think we did it. You got to draw out the drama. I think we're going to kickstart it for the original first edition. Originally, that was the plan. So Sam, my brother, did a lot of the artwork for the expansion based on the first edition of First Light, and then we had the idea of doing a new version to match Chaos Order, because we didn't want to just kind of reprint an old product. We wanted to give it new life and kind of relaunch it in a way. So we delayed the expansion for that reason. So it's been designed for quite a long time. Sam's just been continually working on it and tweaking it, making it better and better. So anyway, that's me yabbering done. Here it is. Take a look. So look at that. I love the bright colors. Like the blues and the golds. So we've got on the cover. We've got the Azuri, which is the guy on the left. They're the new faction, one of the new factions. They're kind of like a sort of subbreed of Skaro, a mountain kind of almost religious type tribe. So they're going to be featured a bit more in the Cicadians line in the future. And we've got the Cicadians dude in the middle, and then someone from the Oxatea, which if you've looked at Chaos Order, you'll know who Oxatea are. So Sam, you can see this, I'm guessing. What are we looking at component-wise?
What are we looking at? Okay, cool. So we're definitely adding in 2 more locals that you can negotiate with. So the obvious one is the Oxatea. In the base game, we have water as a resource, but you couldn't cash in that water to negotiate with locals. We wanted it to be quite low point scoring wise because it's the easiest resource to get and you can get a whole lot of it. But the Oxatea locals have the coolest power. Like when you negotiate with them, they give you, both sides give you something really, really enticing and crunchy. But then the other locals, the Azuri, the new people, that's kind of on the right-hand side of the negotiate board. And this is really interesting. This adds another layer of player interaction, this kind of race element where there are some achievements, basically. And once you've satisfied the conditions for those achievements, maybe it's 4 contracts or 4 negotiates, or you've moved your harvester to the edge of the map, then you can send your die in there. So unlike the other negotiates, you're not spending any resources. You just need to have fulfilled those conditions. And in playtesting, this has been a really interesting point of contention. We've been jockeying for timing and tempo for winning those achievements. And they interact with the advancements and setbacks as well. The locals have their own power. So it's a really fun part of the game. So our playtesters have been enjoying that. So that's the 2 locals. And then in the middle, we've got that long strip. That's a piece that you add to your player board. It's actually outside of the screen, so it's visible, but there's no hidden information required. And basically, that's a location that players can send dice to, and you can send dice to, but not just normal dice. We have what's called specialists. So these are dice that get upgraded. They are essentially wild, and they have the access to go to these outposts. And at the start of the game, players are going to pick an outpost tile, which is going to define what the action is. It's sort of your own special action. When players come to your board, you get a benefit and they get to use that really powerful action. When you go to other players' boards, they get a benefit, you get to use that powerful action. And you can sort of, when you unlock these specialists, you pick where you're unlocking them from, which is going to upgrade your board in different ways. That's super fun. But then the other thing, the understated thing really is that we've got 12 new leaders, new player powers that completely change how you can play the game. They're just as broken as the base game ones, just as game defining. And then we've got another 26 contract cards. So the base game has 36. So you're almost doubling the number of cards you have. And there's a lot of combos, a lot of buffing different locations, a lot of new kind of ways of playing the game. It really opens up the decision space and makes it quite sandboxy.
Nice. Flip back to us. So the base game had only 8 player powers. We added 4 more with the Allies expansion. So really, it's like going from 8, then 4 more, then it's 12 more. So really adds.
And we added 2 more with second edition as well.
That's true. Yeah. So there's a lot now, a lot of replayability. And if you use the what is it called? The Dyad Alliance, you can play with 2 together. So there's all this crazy synergies you can create between different player powers as well. Pretty cool stuff. I've played it quite a few times, even solo as well. So really good. Adds a lot more depth to the game. Not that it needed it really. It's really quite a deep game, but keeps it fresh and more things to explore, more strange broken strategies to explore, as Sam likes doing in games. So for Kickstarter wise, that's most likely going to be a November Kickstarter. That'll be the main focus of that Kickstarter, will be the expansion. There'll also be the upgrade kit that we've talked about, which is essentially that expansion in the new box, in the new second edition of First Light box, with any other pieces that you need to make it as if you had the second edition with the expansion. So it's it'll probably be a similar price to what the second edition was. I'm getting myself confused. So it's going to be a very similar price for whatever way you went about getting the game. You will end up with the same product at the end. That option will be there for you. So if you've got first edition, don't panic. There'll be a way for you to basically get the newest updated version in that Kickstarter. We'll also have a little mini kind of expansion for Chaos Order. It's only just been out for a month at most, not even in retail yet, I don't think. So that's going to be, well, Sam can tell us what it's going to be. A few more cards, some more leaders.
Talk about it.
Oh, you can talk about it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so it's mini in terms of footprint and what it's really adding component-wise. But again, this is just opening up gameplay a lot. So we are adding 2 new leaders for each faction. And so at the start of the game, most factions, you have 5 leaders and you pick your starting 3. And those 3, not starting 3, you pick 3 that will be your force for the game. And so you've got this decision at the start of the game for players that already know the game. What do I want my leader force to be? Who am I going to leave out? That can be an agonizing decision. And yeah, it's just going to open up new play styles for the factions. Maybe for some factions that we felt needed a tiny buff, they get a tiny buff with these leaders, or a play style that they couldn't do that they can do now. The other thing is it will add is 1 attribute for each faction. This is something that is just a very minor tweak for factions that we felt that we wanted to be able to buff or maybe nerf them a little bit, or just open up a different play style that wasn't available, because we've still been playing this game a lot since the Kickstarter. So we've just got some more insight, I guess, from all of our hundreds of plays. So we know that this is going to open up a lot of play styles. We're also adding things like new tactics cards and stuff like that, but it's really about the leaders. All those new leaders for the factions should be pretty fun.
Yeah, it's going to come in probably like a small kind of tuck box. I don't know what dimensions, like the size of 3 phones stacked together. That's a good example. Something like that. So it's like going to have a few of the standee clips, a couple of punch boards for the standees, and then a bunch of cards. So the price point will be quite low on that, I think. We'll just try and sell it as cheap as possible. So it'll be an add-on for that campaign. So first light expansion is the focus, but that's an extra thing you can grab if you want it. Cool. And we have one final thing to share, don't we, Sam?
We do. I'll just say that Shem and I are open to some Q&A after this.
Yeah.
Just feel free to fire away some questions and we might come back to them later. But this might be what you've been waiting for, this next piece of news.
I think they've already seen everything they want to see, I think. We could probably just close it down now.
Yeah. Should we just end it now?
Yeah. No, we actually, was it last week, I think? We got the final board art for Scholars from Micho, if you want to pronounce it correctly. And it's amazing. It's pretty cool. We've been doing the art for over a few months, actually. Even for some of the expansion stuff for West Kingdom, we managed to slip in a few of the characters that we knew were going to be in this game. Some of the translators and scholars and stuff. So let's just take a look, eh? This is your first look at Scholars, what it looks like.
Boom.
Hope you're sitting down. There it is. Look at that beautiful board. So, Sam, my good friend, this is the game that basically started the South Trilogy for us. You got excited about this particular theme, I think it was, especially. So what is the theme of this game?
I really did. I did some reading on, when I started, I was reading about the Saracens, but I realized that was just such a inaccurate term, just a catch-all for people. And so I learned that we're talking about the Abbasids, the Abbasid Caliphate, centered in Baghdad, and they made just the most amazing scientific advancements. They not measured, but they basically predicted the circumference of the Earth to within 1% in 800 AD. But what this game was there was the Caliph, who was basically the king or the ruler of the city, and he was completely fascinated with science and knowledge. And he sort of wanted to acquire it all and teach people as well. And at the time, they didn't have Wikipedia, they didn't have Google, they didn't even have libraries, right? And so this idea of a library was kind of a novel one, especially one that encapsulates knowledge from other regions. So he sent out these emissaries to places like India, to China, to Greece, and he collected all of their scrolls written by their scientists and philosophers from the past, brought them back to Baghdad, and then they had this amazing crew of translators. They called it the translation movement. They were situated in this library called the House of Wisdom, and they translated all these Greek texts and Chinese texts and Indian texts into Arabic. So it was this one centralized place for scientific knowledge, which the world had never seen before at this point. And yeah, so it's pretty amazing. And that's what this game is about. You're hiring a crew of translators. Well, maybe I'll let Shem talk about what's happening mechanically. But you'll hire a crew of translators. You'll send out emissaries to collect scrolls from around the world. You'll translate these scrolls into Arabic, and all the while you're boosting your knowledge, your scientific knowledge, which is some colorful tracks you can see in the middle of the board there.
Yeah, so the game is a dice bag builder. Sam had the initial idea of like, what if we add randomness to randomness? How can we make that work? Because bag building's fun, and then like dice placement and action taking's fun. Can this be a thing without it being too random? And we have seen it done before. Roll for the Galaxy is a dice bag builder, so it's not something that hasn't been done before, but we wanted to give it our own spin. And when Sam sort of pitched the initial idea, I was like, yeah, it sounds great. So that one of the main ways that Sam thought up to get around the amount of luck that dice can create and a bag draw can create is the use of workers in the game. So you'll see there's a bunch of workers down the bottom. Some have been placed onto cards. Those workers allow you, if it's the same color as the die, to basically make the die to a 6, which is, you can always underspend in this game, so you just go to max pips. Or you can place a different color worker on a die to change the color of that die to that color. You can see on the far left there's a 1 pip white die with a white worker, then a red worker. That die is now essentially becoming a red 6. So you can place up to 2 workers on a die. So it's quite easy to mitigate bad rolls or bad draws if you lean into more of a worker economy in the game. So it takes away, it doesn't feel like you're getting a lot of bad luck in the game. That's not really a thing. It's more about restricting actions and that kind of stuff. There's only 4 actions in the game, and you'll see them along the bottom of the player boards. There's the 4 bands that are in brown. So we've got hire, we've got a travel with the little horse guy, and then you've got the research and translate. So those are the 4 things you're doing in the game. And you're doing that by playing a card down on the action slot you want to take, and then assigning some dice, and then taking the action. Sounds very simple, but it's quite a brain burner. So across the top of the main board, you'll see there's a bunch of translators. Each of these decks of cards that you'll see at the top has the same person. So the guy on the far left is a Chinese guy. They've got the Sanskrit, Greek, Hebrew, and so on. And all these translators want to help you get these scrolls, which you see on the left-hand side on that map over there. They want to get these scrolls into the House of Wisdom on the right-hand side, where you see those 3 towers with the minarets on the top. And then we want to hire the translators from the top, put them down at the bottom so they flip over and look like they're sitting down in the room. And then we use them to translate the scrolls from the original language into Arabic. And that might take one step, might go like, we've got a woman here with the red dress at the bottom. She speaks Syriac and Arabic. Might be hard to see on the screen, but she can translate Syriac scrolls straight into Arabic. So she's like a 1 step. Whereas translating something from Chinese might go from Chinese into Greek, then into Persian, and then into Arabic. So it might be 3 different people might translate that scroll. So that's kind of what you're doing in the game. And the part in the middle with all the colorful tracks is the research. So they represent 6 different types of sciences and maths, like calculus and philosophy and biology and all sorts, and astronomy. So as you're finding these scrolls and translating them, you're also learning more knowledge about the sciences, and that's those tracks moving up is basically you, representation of you learning those things. And the tracks also function as a sort of an income in the game. So whenever you take a certain action to rest and get your dice back, you're going to harvest any tracks that you've played down the associated cards for. So yeah, I'm going to flip back to us now so you can stop staring and drooling at that screen. It's us again, sorry. Not quite as pretty as that.
Definitely downgraded the quality of the picture now.
But I'm going to share all these images that you've seen from us. I'll be put onto Board Game Geek straight after this video. So no need to screen grab and all that kind of stuff. You'll get to see close-up versions of them. But yeah, that's really exciting for us. That's been a game that's been in development for probably 2 years or more now, 2.5 years maybe.
One thing I want to talk about from the gameplay point of view is I'm really happy with the amount of positive player interaction that's in this game. You can't just sit there on your own in your own little island. There is a lot of player interaction, but it's not mean. You could focus on your own on recruiting your own translators and delivering your own scrolls and translating them all yourself. You could do every step of that process on your own. Or you could be the guy that does all the recruits, and then people will use your translators and you get a benefit. They don't have to hire them. You could deliver scrolls that other people end up translating. So there's this really interesting kind of, what steps of the process are you going to focus on? Are you going to do all of it, or are you going to specialize in certain areas? And there's this really cool ecosystem amongst the players for the whole translating process.
Our game on Friday, Sam, I think you didn't translate at all, did you? In that 2-player.
I didn't touch translating.
I think I translated
Usually
7 or 8 times,
right?
and there was only I think there was 3 points between us. I think at the end, something close like that. So
yeah,
like most of our games, we try and make all the paths possible, while staying true to what the focus of the game is. But yeah, Sam loves making hidden strategies, so I think it's its own little joy of finding things that others might find. It's like the debt strat in the West Kingdom and stuff like that. So yeah, that's basically all we had to share. Any comments pop out to you, Sam? I'm just going to scroll a bit now. If you have any questions, fire away.
Yeah, I did want to talk a little bit about, we could call it playtesting, but it's probably more likely demoing. We will be taking feedback, but we're pretty happy with where the game is. We're going to be opening that up soon, maybe at the end of this week, maybe next week. But I have recorded a teaching video. It's like my usual really rambling teaching video.
That's great.
It's going to be on our Discord, so you could sign up to watch that, to learn the game, if you're willing to do a demo session with us on Tabletop Simulator. So you'll hear about that really, really shortly. We might eventually also open it for solo testing as well. So yeah, that's probably how you can learn about the game. We won't post the rulebook for quite a while. But yeah, playing with us, we'd love to have your help. And we might be doing 2 to 3 plays a week for a month or so. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and Boris is asking about the solo mode. I think we worked on the solo for Scholars first, I think. Maybe it went to Wayfarers and went back again, but it's got the same system, and we're going to try and do the same thing for Inventors as well, where it just uses 6 cards, 3 blue cards, 3 red cards. So that's also true in Scholars, using a similar kind of rondel type decision making system, which I just find to be so easy to manage. I'm not a huge solo gamer, but I do enjoy, when I play solo, I enjoy not having to worry about managing the solo. I just want to be able to flip a card and they know what to do, rather than me kind of scrolling through a list of actions they might take. So yeah, it's going to be similar. I'm still doing a lot of testing on that one. I need Sam and some others to jump in and really push the limits of it, make sure it's working how it should. But it's an interesting AI to build, because like Sam talked about the kind of interaction of the game between players, it needs to fill the gaps, things that you aren't doing in the game that the AI needs to do. So all the cards going to have this if statement, like if there's no scrolls to translate, deliver a scroll. Or if there's no one to translate, hire someone. So it kind of has to respond to what you're not doing, while also still being competitive. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one to balance for sure, but it's coming along quite nicely.
I do want to give one word on that as well, because we've seen a lot of people praise the AIs where they have a personality, in Wayfarers and Viscounts in particular. They have there's 4 different AIs that not only are different difficulties, but they have a different focus. And I think that's a system that works really well if the game is quite sandboxy, and if the game maybe isn't super interactive. But in a game like Scholars, and even in a game like Paladins, you kind of need them to fill the gaps, as Shem has said. So we're not sure that we're going to have a personality for the AI, because actually it needs to be able to tactically respond to the game state. So I just don't think that's something that could fit every single game, giving the AI a personality. A game like First Light as well, I think I want the AI to be able to respond to what I've done and to block spots, and not to be predictable that they would go a certain route.
Yeah, every game is different, which just makes it fun to develop. Always a new challenge. So this one will likely be on Kickstarter sometime between January and March. If we can get it earlier, we will. just so it can make some of the cons later in the year. And just because we want to kind of get a bit more ahead of schedule, not to like push games out to April. I think we did for Wayfarers across into April. So hopefully everything's pretty much ready, gameplay wise, other than sort of final testing and open public testing. And obviously I haven't written the rulebook yet because I'm always leave it the last thing to do. But other than that, the game's it's functioning really well. So we just need to do some final polish and final development stuff on it. So I think January could be possible, but it might end up being February or March. We'll see. Yeah, so that's basically it. We've got September 6th, where we have Legacy EU coming to Kickstarter. Make sure you go check out Arkus. You'll find them on most social media platforms. And their game Dreadful Meadows is coming in October to Kickstarter. Then we've got November for us is the First Light expansion, the little mini expansion of Chaos Order, and then early next year, Scholars. And then more stuff that we haven't even announced yet coming out mid next year. And Inventors is still looking like probably a year later. Sam and I have just started, well, we've been back and forth on designs for that for a long time actually, probably over a year of just like, let's try this, that sucks, let's try this, no, that doesn't work. And then we've finally got something that's actually feeling like a game. So we're probably going to be playing a bit of that today and maybe, this week a bit more. So that's exciting. More dice stuff, of course. But yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, we had one or two. Is Wayfarers on track for the delivery date?
As far as I'm aware, yep. I don't go chase them down too much. I've sent through the shipping information so they know where games need to go. We're just like locking down how we manage that. In the past, we just get the manufacturer to ship the games for us. But we did see some issues. There's always going to be issues in some way anyways. It's not really a thing, but we had some issues at the border in the US for the last stock, just sort of sitting there for no reason because paperwork wasn't there or whatever it is. So we may be looking at getting Gamerati to handle the shipment instead, or their partners. So we're just working through that now. But I think manufacturers, as far as I'm aware, is still in progress. So hopefully they'll wrap up towards the end of the month. I haven't had a date yet, but then it's usually about 2 months of fulfillment from when we know manufacturer's done. It's two maybe 3 at most months for it to be done. So which puts us towards the end of the year, which is good. Yeah.
Got a question here. Yes, the expansion for First Light is solo friendly. I would say it's a little bit harder. So yeah, if you like a challenge, it's good. I also had a question about my favorite leader in the upcoming First Light expansion. And I know that was a bait, but my favorite leader actually is someone that I play First Light with when doing playtesting would often run out of dice. They would sort of spend them all early game and then they wouldn't recruit anymore. And then I started thinking, what if I facilitated this game style, this play style? And so there's a leader that gets you an algae and an energy each round. For every dice, you're below your limit. So you're sort of like risking it. You're sort of gambling, taking fewer and fewer actions, but you get more and more benefit for doing that. What else have we got? Another question about...
You can't just move on from that comment, Sam.
Okay, write a response. Let's go.
Sam basically made a character that makes up for my bad play during First Light. That's what he's saying. I always get this point where I'm like, all right, next round, why do I have just one die in front of me? Where are all my dice gone? Because I commit them all in one round and forget about it. So Sam made a character for me that allows me to be a bad player. So
I think I originally even had the artwork of you in Circadian Armor and called it Shem Phillips as well. I think you changed that pretty fast.
Yeah, he's just keeping me humble, pulling me down to it. I appreciate it, Sam.
We do have a question about how much from Sa, sorry if I've pronounced your name incorrectly, how much interaction there's in Scholars compared to Wayfarers, and what things you have to watch in other players at the table. What do you have to keep an eye out for? I would say that there is more interaction in Scholars. You need to keep an eye out for the scrolls that have been delivered. Those are the only ones that can be translated. And if someone is getting like a 1 point per Sanskrit scroll and a Sanskrit scroll just ended up in the House of Wisdom, you might want to try and block that, or you might want to make sure that that Sanskrit translator has retired. There's things like that. You can also kind of respond to other players' moves by yoinking things early, things like that. Wayfarers is quite interactive in the endgame timer. There's a little bit of a race element in the game, whereas Scholars is a bit more, I don't know, dynamic, I guess. No, not dynamic. The in-game is less in control of the players. It's kind of just going to naturally come to an end.
And we had a question about the promo cards. We have not designed any promo cards for Scholars yet, have we? But we easily could make some, like a new translator for each language with some new abilities. Something like that. Eight more cards, or yeah, we'll think up some things. Maybe some new starting cards. But yeah, definitely. There'll definitely be some promos. We just haven't designed them yet. Scholars is a bit more like Paladins in the way that it feels quite like a really closed system. If that makes sense. With Paladins, like it's hard to create more powers because everything kind of fits in this puzzle perfectly, and it's hard to add more things into the puzzle. And Scholars is similar because you've only got like a set number of languages, a set number of tracks in the middle. You can't just kind of make these crazy powers that do weird things unless they have 17 icons on a card. So yeah, but we could probably quite easily make like a few more powers for translators and stuff, because they have a dismiss ability at the top right corner of each translator, and then when you hire them, they'll have their languages you can use, and then when they retire, they give you a power which buffs one of your actions. So they've got quite a few elements to them that we can play around with. Yeah.
We've got a question about high interaction games, that they are usually better with a higher play count. I can tell you that I really, really am enjoying the 2-player games of Scholars. So you could add in the solo for a third player, but I don't think you'll need to. I don't think you'll want to. But we have tested that once, actually,
Yeah.
and it works.
We always test at least once, so it's like, does it work? Yeah, it works. It's good. I think it's a rare thing people want to do, because you want to just play the game usually, but I understand that some people want to add it in, so it would work. Yeah, it functions like a player essentially. Gets in your way, takes cards and things. Yeah.
We've got Zach asking about, I know, Zach, we're asking about the Chaos Order. He's coming to New Zealand, co-designer Chaos Order. Are we going to do a live play? We could, yeah, with Chaos Order and the mini expansion. I also eventually, if the game like picks up enough, I want to do like a little tournament, a little Chaos Order tournament. That would be kind of fun to see who is the greatest player. So maybe that's something to look forward to in the future.
Nice. All right. We cannot send you the games right now, Cole. I'm sorry. Yeah. You can come around and play it at my place, though. That'll probably do for the video. Thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate you guys watching us, and and just the fact that you're excited makes us more excited to make these games. So, and thank you for Arkus, for Nicola and Paul for jumping on. And I'll drop some links in this video, as they always say on videos. That's the thing to say, right? Like, subscribe, and all that rubbish. We'll do some of that stuff because it's cool. And I'll share some images on BGG today as well, which might take a few hours to show up, but that's about it. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate your support as always. We love doing this. We feel so privileged and blessed to be able to do it. So the fact that you like the games we're making is just a bonus for us, and yeah, so cool. So thank you all, and we'll chat with you soon again. Bye bye.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.